This fence is over 20 years old, and over time, the bottom of these posts get really rotted, and I've had 2 posts break off during windstorms. This post here, I was able to dig down, break up the concrete a little bit, and get the old concrete out and just replace it with new concrete. But I had another post that broke off that was right here, and I couldn't get the concrete out of this one. I tried to break it up, and it was just too difficult. So I found a way to replace it with these 2 without using concrete. So eventually, when I put a new fence up, I won't have to deal with more concrete. That brings us to method number 1 for setting a post, and that is using concrete. This is the good old-fashioned way. I also still think this is the best way. In fact, when I do a new fence, this is how I'll be doing it. Now, before we mix this concrete, let's talk about how big the hole needs to be that you need to dig for the post. Now, to make this easy, we're going to say we have a fence post that is 6 feet tall. Now, the recommendation is to go 1/3 or 1/2 of that post underground. So you're going to want to put 3 feet of the post underground. So you'll want to dig a hole that is 3 feet deep, or 36 inches. Now we know how deep we need to make the hole, but how big do we need to make it? What does the diameter of the hole need to be? To figure that out, we need to figure out how big the post is. This one is 4 inches by 4 inches. The recommendation is to go 3 times that. So we're going to want to go 4 times 3, which is 12. So we're going to want to dig a hole that is 12 inches by 12 inches in diameter. And that should be a big enough hole for the post that we're using. So the post is 4 inches by 4 inches thick. And you would fill in the hole with 2 50-pound bags of concrete mix. After we dig the hole, it's time to mix the cement. When I mix, I do it with a wheelbarrow and a shovel. I take the shovel and I put a little groove, almost like a river, down the middle of it, and I stick water in there. I used an 80-pound bag of Quikrete mix, and they recommend doing 3 quarts per 80-pound bag. The more you water it down, the weaker the cement's going to become. So I wanted to be careful not to put too much water into it. So I just added what I felt was appropriate, and then I mixed it in real good with the shovel. After I felt it was the right consistency, it was time to get it into the hole. I shoveled it in, and I used the shovel to kind of break it up and even out the concrete when I got it in the hole. Then I leveled the pole to make sure that everything was level, and then I patted the concrete down. You can do this with a trowel, or you can do it with a piece of wood to kind of get it flat. I just had an old pair of shoes on, so I just did it with my shoes. So I'd level it, pat it down, level it until I got it just right. And that is how I added cement to one of the posts. Now let's talk about a different method. Method number 2 is a method that I found on Amazon. I found these large spikes that go on the bottom of the post. So I measured my post, and then I wanted the spike to go completely underground. Most people keep the bolts above ground, but I wanted it to look like every other post, so I wanted to make sure that I buried the entire spike. So usually with this method, you don't have to dig a hole, but I dug a hole for 2 reasons. 1, because I wanted to bury the entire spike in the hole, and 2, because of this. Holy crap.
Another decade rock.
Did you see the size of that rock? In Texas, the ground here is so rocky, there's no way you can get the spike in without getting it started first. So after digging the hole and remembering safety first, I cut the post to the length I needed it. I just made it the same length as the other post with a little extra so I could bury the spike under the ground. After I made the cut, I put the spike on the post and bolted it on. Then I put the pole in the ground and started hammering it in. I need to fill it in with dirt. And I guess if you really wanted to make it stronger, you could put cement down there and cement it in. It's actually a lot more sturdy than I thought it would be, to be honest. After I got it hammered in, I buried the top of the spike there, and that's it. That's method number 2. Now it's time to show you method number 3. Number 3 is the foam method. You get this mix that will help fix posts that have come out of the ground like mine. This is a 2-part mix. There's a sill in between, so you roll it up to break the sill.
Okay.
Once you break that seal, you mix it for 15 seconds, and you don't want to go longer than 15 seconds because it will start to expand. If you go longer, that bag might blow up, so you need to do 15 seconds exactly, cut the end of the bag, and then put it into the hole. And you'll see it start to expand. It'll take about 5 minutes to expand completely, and then you'll want to let it sit for a couple of hours just to make sure it's tough enough before you bury that hole again. Okay, I've got to admit, this was my least favorite method, and the reason it was is because it didn't last past our first windstorm. But I think a big reason why it didn't is because of the way I dug the hole. I didn't dig the hole like the instructions that I gave you at the beginning of this video. And so it's possible that it was a little too wide and it didn't go deep enough. So if the hole was dug correctly, this probably would have worked a little better. Maybe it's worth giving it a try. I probably won't do it again. So that is method number 3. I hope this video answers some questions for you. I have a lot more videos on my channel, including some fun smart home gadgets that I have in my home. I'll put a few of those videos here so you can check those out.